The second game Hudson Soft released on January 21st is a port of their 1983 computer game, Bomberman. That's right, this is the very first Bomberman game, and as I mentioned, this is a port of a game originally released for a variety of Japanese computers, probably most notably the MSX. The game looked quite a bit different in its original version. We'll take a look at that here. You might notice Bomberman looks quite a bit different. He appears to be some guy wearing a pork pie hat and suspenders. There's only one kind of enemy in the original Bomberman, some sort of pink balloon. The game is actually quite a bit more simple than the Famicom version. A number of features, various power-ups and whatnot, were added. One thing about the original MSX version is it does have a very cool death animation for Bomberman himself, as you'll see here. In reworking the game for the Famicom, Hudson reused one of the character designs from Lode Runner. Now Bomberman is supposed to be a robot as opposed to a guy who works in demolitions. Now Bomberman is an enormously popular series and of course lasted for many years, and I guess it's still around in some form or another, even though the last Bomberman game was not very well received. But this game is actually a little bit different than what you might be used to. Most surprisingly, this is only a single player game. There is no multiplayer option for this. The goal of the game is to, well, use your bombs to blow up all the enemies first of all, then use your bombs to uncover the door and exit. Along the way you can find various power-ups. This game's a little unusual in that the first levels are actually probably the hardest because your ability to blow up things is so limited. You can only drop one bomb at a time, the explosion is quite small, and there are actually quite a few things to uncover before you finally find the door. In round 1 there I almost ran out of time before I found it. You can only blow up so many walls with your limited bombing power. However, if you keep blowing things up, you'll eventually find power-ups that increase the bomb radius, that will allow you to drop 2 bombs at once. As your blast radius increases, you'll find it's much easier to kill enemies since you don't have to get so close to them to set a bomb. One thing about this game is when you first turn it on, it doesn't really seem that exciting. However, the more you play, the better it gets. I really think finding some power-ups actually makes the game quite a bit more enjoyable. You can really sort of start doing things you normally associate with Bomberman, like setting off huge chains of explosions and whatnot. So I think that sort of this game is actually, really kind of worth sticking around for. Once you've kind of gotten a few power-ups, the game becomes much more playable. Altogether, I believe there are 50 levels in the Famicom version. There are also numerous hidden bonus point type things. There's a fireball that will increase my radius. The explosions are getting quite big now. Another very cool thing you'll find out later is a detonator that allows you to set bombs and then blow them up one at a time. This will allow you to set traps for the monsters and kill them in much more entertaining ways. As a rule, the monsters tend to get a bit more difficult as you go along. Eventually they can do things like walk directly through walls. And of course, as you get more and more firepower, you also stand a chance of blowing yourself up. So this is actually a pretty decent game, perhaps not as exciting as the later games in the series, but certainly worth playing.